This is Mercedes' attempt to make a rational decision in an irrational situation. You see, this is the all-new Mercedes-Benz CLE coupe, and coupes are, by their very nature, irrational. We buy them for emotional reasons, because they're stylish, because they're sporty, because they're fun and luxurious. They're not as practical or sensible or as good value as a sedan or an SUV. So what makes this one in particular so rational? Well, because the CLE is a replacement for both the C-Class coupe and the E-Class coupe. So it basically is two cars in one. So the question now is it any good? Let's find out. Let's start with what you're going to pay, and Mercedes-Benz Australia is now famous for doing national pricing with no wiggle room for you to haggle with your local dealer. So the initial range consists of just two models, the CLE 200 and the CLE 300, but the AMG variant, the CLE 53, is due to follow, as are the cabriolets. The CLE 200 is priced from $103,900, while the CLE 300 is $124,900, and neither of those prices include on-road costs. Standard features across both models include the latest MBUX multimedia system, an 11.9-inch infotainment screen, a 12.3-inch digital instrument display, ambient cabin lighting, a Burmeister surround sound system, a head-up display, heated front seats with memory function, panoramic sliding sunroof, built-in navigation, and wireless device charging. One of the biggest specification differences between the two models is the CLE 200 gets synthetic leather trim, while the CLE gets the real deal. Now, if you want more details on the specification and pricing, make sure you read my in-depth written review at carsguide.com.au. Moving on to design, and thankfully for the German brand, its family look across the range means the CLE seamlessly integrates into both the C-Class and the E-Class lineups. Mercedes does use some colourful language to describe the looks, with terms like shark nose for the front end and the power domes on the bonnet. And as has become basically the norm, Mercedes Australia has added the AMG line as a standard feature, which brings bigger brake vents, side sills, a rear apron, while the night package, which adds some darker elements to the design, is also included. All right, now we've jumped inside, let's talk about the practical elements of design. The cabin. Obviously, the CLE is trying to replace both a smaller coupe and a larger coupe, so it's got to appeal to both audiences. The simple solution, obviously, is to make it on the bigger side, so it is bigger in every dimension compared to the C-Class, so it is a bit more E-Class sized. But the design, the interior design, is very much in line with the modern C-Class. So you've got all those elements that make up a modern Mercedes-Benz, large digital screen here for the instrument panel, large digital infotainment screen in the center. You've got the AMG touches because it's got the AMG line interior as well as the exterior package. So it's got the things that a modern Mercedes buyer expects. The biggest change, though, is back here in the rear seats, which have about 95 millimeters more space than the old C-Class coupe, which frankly is about 95 millimeters more space than they had because it was pretty cramped. Honestly, coupes are meant for the front seat passengers, but there is enough space here in the back now that you could certainly tolerate it for a relatively short trip. But at least on the plus side, it's got more practicality than the C-Class used to have, so that's a win. Although I'm not sure how much of a win. Hey, yeah, it's okay. As for the boot, well, it's 60 litres bigger than what previously the C-Class offered. However, it is 5 litres smaller than what the E-Class coupe had. So it's a little bit of give and take. One thing you won't find in here underneath the floor is any sort of spare or puncture repair kit, because the CLE uses run flat tyres, so be aware of that. Under the bonnet, both the CLE 200 and the CLE 300 are powered by a very similar 4-cylinder turbocharged petrol engine, albeit in different states of tune, but both get an integrated starter motor for some mild hybrid assistance. The CLE 200 coupe makes 150 kilowatts and 320 newton meters and sends it to the rear wheels via a 9-speed automatic transmission. The CLE 300 4MATIC coupe gets 190 kilowatts and 400 newton meters, but also gets, as the name gives away, Mercedes 4MATIC all-wheel drive. While not really a hybrid in the conventional sense, the integrated starter generator adds an extra 17 kilowatts and 205 Newton meter boost when required, while also helping to save a bit of fuel. And speaking of fuel consumption, the official figures for the pair are quite close despite the differences in the drivetrains. The CLE 200 has a claimed fuel rating of 7.2 litres per 100 Ks, while the CLE 300 uses fractionally more at 7.4. Let's talk about how the CLE drives, because Mercedes Australia has made a point that this is a deliberately sportier model. It's got sports suspension, for example, so it's a bit stiffer and a bit lower than the car is in its standard form in other markets overseas. But I wouldn't say it's a particularly sporty car, particularly the CLE 200 and the CLE 300. Whilst the engines provide, more than adequate performance, I would call it sprightly rather than, a particularly high performance car. That will come, make no mistake. We've already seen a CLE 43 from AMG, and those boffins at Benz are probably working on a CLE 63 if I was a betting man. So for those who want the outright performance, well, that is going to come. But in the meantime, what this car is, the CLE 200 and 300, frankly, they're very similar in terms of how they drive, their behavior on the road. I would say they are, like I say, sporty without being high performance. So, they turn well, they're responsive. The ride is probably, I would say, a touch on the firm side, particularly with the run flat tires. It can get a bit busy at times, and it doesn't pamper you like some Mercedes models do. But overall, what it does do is it provides the kind of driving experience that both C-Class and E-Class coupe buyers will be familiar with. Ultimately though, what they've done is just refine what has made both the C-Class coupe and the E-Class coupe appealing to those buyers and put it into this one package. It doesn't reinvent the wheel, but it gives those buyers what they want, what they are familiar with. In terms of safety, both the CLE models come with all the usual passive and active safety features you'd expect in a modern luxury car. That includes autonomous emergency braking, active lane keeping assist, active brake assist, blind spot monitoring, traffic sign assist, active cruise control, and Mercedes' clever pre-safe accident anticipation system. There's no ANCAP rating for this new model announced yet. As for its ownership credentials, the CLE is covered by Mercedes Australia's usual 5-year unlimited kilometre warranty, and the brand offers a pre-purchase service plans for maintenance covering 3, 4 or 5 years, starting at $3,325. So what's the verdict? Has Mercedes's, rational idea paid off in this irrational and sometimes emotion-driven world that we live in? Well, in a word, yes. This is, everything that I think both C-Class and E-Class coupe buyers are looking for. It's fun, it's stylish, it's luxurious. It ticks all those boxes that both people will want. So it really does solve two problems at once for Mercedes. Now, remember, if you want more, check out my in-depth written review at carsguide.com.au.